Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Insha'Allah, all my brothers and sisters are well. I've got a question for you. Are we living in America's Matrix? Because this is General Mark A. Milley, the chairman of the Joint Chief of Staffs of the US military, the highest military authority in the land, and the principal military advisor to the US president.
You see, we are unique among armies. We are unique among militaries. We do not take an oath to a king or a queen, a tyrant or a dictator. We do not take an oath to an individual.
Notice what he said. He does not swear allegiance to a king, president, or an individual, etc., but to the US Constitution drafted way back in 1788.
No, we do not take an oath to a country, a tribe, or a religion. We take an oath to the Constitution.
Neither does he take an oath to a country, a tribe, or a religion. Now this is very interesting. His oath is not to a country, so it's not nationalism. It's not an oath to a religion, so it's not religion.
It is that document that gives purpose to our service. It is that document that gives purpose to this museum.
His oath is to the founding 1788 US document that he considers almost sacred.
In it are the ideas and the values that make up this experiment called the United States of America. And we in uniform are willing to die to pass it on to the next generation.
So he and others would sacrifice their life for that document and the ideas it contains, not for Christianity, not for America, not for Trump, but the ideals of liberal secularism. Notice the passion in his voice. He is fully invested in the idea. So what do you think? What's the big deal, right? It's just a military man saying he is only answerable to his nation's founding principles and will die to protect his nation's founding document. Nothing wrong with that, right? Very reasonable indeed. Now do this, my brothers and sisters, if you will. Instead of an American officer, I want you to imagine a Muslim commander standing in his place. That's right. Then I want you to replace the American Constitution with the Holy Quran. And instead of the American flag behind him and the pristine backdrop, I want a flag with the Shahada written on it. Oh, you done that? Good. Now reimagine this passionate scene again, but this time with those changes. So this time a Muslim officer standing in front of a Muslim flag saying he is only answerable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he and his men will die and do whatever it takes for serving its ideals.
I do not swear allegiance to a king, president, individual, but I profess La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. Neither do I take an oath to a country, a tribe, or democracy. We take a sincere oath to uphold the sacred unchanging law of Allah as found in the Holy Quran and Sunnah. And for this law and its ideals, we are prepared to become shaheed, shed blood and die. Allahu Akbar.
Now all of a sudden, it doesn't sound so reasonable, does it? It almost sounds like something you'd expect an extremist to say. Am I right? So why does it sound so reasonable when an American says those words, but when a Muslim says something similar, it sounds rather extreme? Well, it shouldn't, right? I mean, in theory, there should be no difference. There should be no difference whatsoever in how we see them both, right? Now, some might argue the only reason the Muslim example seems so extreme is because of the post-9/11 terrorism and the war on terror, the conflicts involving ISIS, Al-Qaeda, etc. All this stuff has somehow tainted Islam. So when people hear about Islam, they automatically link it to terrorism. Okay, fair enough. But isn't that just using double standards for both? If Islam and Muslims are tainted by terrorism in the name of Islam, shouldn't the illegal war in Iraq the disproportionate war in Afghanistan, the excessive drone strikes, waterboarding, torture in general, the rendition flights, Abu Ghraib, Guantanamo, etc. also not taint the American military forces. That's reasonable, right? Yet somehow it doesn't. Why? When an American officer declares fealty to his constitution and a willingness to sacrifice his men and himself to its cause, shouldn't that also be taken as an extremist act? But again, it isn't. Shouldn't that also send chills down a listener's spine? But it doesn't. Why? So why are one people and their ideas, i.e. Muslims, painted as extreme for whatever reason, but when it comes to other nations like the United States of America, they are not considered extreme? Yet we can reasonably argue that more blood has been shed by America than all the terrorists in the world put together. Fact. Now I think the reason is obvious. Optics. In this day and age, anything can be made to seem true if enough thought, money, tech, and influence is pushed behind it. The glorification of the US military in Hollywood and pop culture in general, the political support it enjoys, the favourable media coverage, tabloid and journalism, think tanks, CIA, MI6, MI5 and other agencies all working around the clock to pump positive news about the ideals of America and its military and negative news about Islam and Muslims to the world will end up shaping our perception of reality. So in the end, when we see a thing about Islam, we think extreme, terrorism, barbarism. And when we see anything about America, we think modern, reasonable, innocent. So, my dear brothers and sisters, just some food for thought about the power and influence of our social, political, cultural institutions and how we ought to try and think outside the box. If we don't, we will end up living in a matrix-type world where everything is fake and made up. We need to break through this. Now, that is not to say that if you did this, i.e. saw the world as it actually is, instead of how they want us to see it, everything will suddenly make Muslim people seem perfect and every reference to America will be bad. No, of course not. Any reasonable person would say Muslims do bad things too, as do Americans. Surprise, surprise. But Muslims also do good things, just like Americans. But in the world we are living in, the Muslim good stuff gets ignored and hidden away. And then you're only left with the bad stuff, the negatives. This skews reality and makes it seem that all Muslims are bad and all Muslims
Americans
are
are
good, which is of course ludicrous. Now, removing the filter means we can make up our own mind of what is good and what is bad, instead of being told by other people what to think. If you like my content, please make sure to subscribe, share, comment and like, and please don't forget to click the notification bell button so that you're informed of the latest upload and you don't miss it. Now, thank you for watching. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And don't forget, La ilaha illallahu Muhammadur Rasulullah.